Well, I had a little introduction before that, I guess, and everybody here knows who I am. But anyway, it's like everybody else. We never have enough room, so we all have to take and make concessions. And I really wanted to have all of the cars available that I have. So that's why I made this movable platform on an old. It was a cheap. They call it to go underneath cars and stuff creeper.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get all the cars in the so I could see them all. Now, if you look at the bottom down here, you see those white boxes? Well, those are full of cars.
And how much a piece?
It didn't work very well anyway. So a couple other things. I had some goals by making this thing, and one of them is that I really needed more storage space, and I also wanted the staging to be done by operators, not by me, because I didn't want to do that. So that would be less work preparation for me. And it really takes about 5 people or so to do staging. I'll go through a couple of times, but the first guy clear over to the left where the yard is, or the rolling yard, he is the passenger and staging yard master. He takes care of seeing everything gets off that barge and gets onto the railroad. And then I have the west end switcher, and that guy makes up the train. He gets his orders from the hump yard guy when he's got a train ready. He'll tell him, he makes it up, puts the caboose on. We'll see that. Then we have the east end switcher, and he takes care of every the trains that come in. He gets the caboose off and handles the cars going back on into the storage yard. The next guy is the tower man. And the reason I have a tower man is I have 2 double slip switches. And I don't know if any of you have any of those, but they are horrible things. No one should have them, but they do work. And so he takes care of those, gets everything in and out of the yard. And then finally we have the hump yard switcher. He's the guy who he does all the staging. And all I end up doing is I change the way bills. So with that in mind, I'll go through the slides. And, I wanted to get rid of the 050 method. I just didn't want to handle everything. And as I said, I didn't have the room, so I built this thing. And this has 4 boxes. They'll hold 36 40-foot cars. There's 3 tracks on each box. And I use 2 boxes for each operating session. Any questions? So here I am taking the barge to the port. And that all comes from Joe, John. Joe said that I ought to have have a tug there. So I said, okay, I'm going to make one.
Old side wheeler.
Yeah. All right. So here we're mating it up with the layout, and it's crude. It works. Those white pieces there are a homemade re-railer, and the threaded rod is a safety feature to keep the cars from rolling out. Because there's some tipping and so forth when you dock it and when you pull it away and things like that. All the tracks are loose so that they can be easily moved back and forth to make contact. I don't really show it here, but there are pieces of wire soldered to the rail so that the rails will be in line.
Oh, okay.
And that way, and then you put the little wedge board underneath there, which wedges everything tight, and you got a pretty good fit.
So the wires are functioning like a rail joiner would?
Yeah. Now, you really don't have any electricity on the barge.
No, but they just aligned the tracks and,
Yeah,
yeah.
as long as I can get the locomotive back close enough. You know, most locomotives, I have all diesels, actually will go on there with one truck on the main line. And once in a while, you have to do a little bit of fingering it on there.
Mhm.
So this is kind of a new feature, this EJ&E thing. I had these locomotives, so why not use them? They're all old Man 201s with their Athearn chassis under them. And they even have the old original Athearn motors in them. There's no problem with DCC with them. They still don't pull anywhere near 1 amp. Anyway, so this box will be pulled by the EJ&E group. The other box is going to be pulled by the Union Pacific group. So what he pulled out of there, the 12 cars he pulled, here's a list of them. So there's a tank car. It's going to be routed to New York via Milwaukee 102. EJ&E is full of corn. It's going to go to Pinnacle Ford, train 13. The CGW stock car will go to Swift in Marshalltown on 256. There's another stock car, GMO. It's going the same place, same train. There's a Santa Fe car, same train. There's a Monon gondola loaded with coal. It'll be set out on the Northwestern Interchange in Tama from the Milwaukee train. I can't see it because anyway, you guys can.
102.
Okay, and anyway, the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie box is empty. It'll be set out at Beals for filling. Northwestern box loaded with freight. There's a little error in instead of 2, there's a Tor there. To Marshalltown on 256, and Santa Fe box goes to Pinnacle Ford full of corn. And then there's a couple of Swift reefers that are empty. They'll go over for cleaning and they'll be iced. And 6 of the cars will be routed to different trains, and 1 car will be a through car and will not stop on the layout.
Mhm.
Okay, now if I can get this to work. This is the engineer's view. You can see all the irregularities of the track. You can see all of the ties that are missing, because I've really never done a lot of scenic in the what I call the staging area. Just went by a red light, which if there would have been somebody at the tower, he could have turned that to green to let him in, but it's just me here, so. Train on the left is a petroleum train getting ready to leave on the Milwaukee. Okay, so he's in. He has to go further in order to back up, but I decided that was not anything to look at. So now all I got to do is get rid of this. Okay, so this is the brakeman's view as he pushes it into the track for the hump yard guy. And you see the track to the right is the incline going up to the hump yard. Whoops. Wait a minute. There we go. You gotta be a little careful when you get up here because it's a heck of a jolt. So the string of cars that went in there, the first 2 cars will have to go over the hump. The next 3 cars are stock cars. They won't go over the hump. They'll be taken to the stockyard which is the track closest to the edge. We'll look at that in a minute. So the one locomotive is pulling the two cars up to the top of the hump. The other locomotive is pulling the three stock cars.
Mhm.
So now he is the Emmons St. L locomotive, which is doing the switching today. He's got the stock cars at the stockyard where, you know, they can rest and so forth if they need to. So these are the car cards and the waybills that are in them. I don't think you can read them though. Maybe you'll have to tell me if you can.
I can, but I've got them up on a big screen, so.
Okay, well, I'll talk about a little bit there. The car to the left is the EJ&E boxcar, and it's going to go out on the Milwaukee 13. And that'll be, it'll go to the Cedar Rapids yard. And the Cedar Rapids, I got problems reading it from here myself. Industrial set out. It goes to the, where Pinnakin Ford is, and it'll be placed on track 1, position 1 or 2.
Mhm.
And it's a boxcar filled up with corn. The next car to the right is that tank car, and it has an orange waybill in it for train Milwaukee 102, and it will just go around the layout and come back off and go right straight into the yard. It's just a through car. In the front is there's places to put each one of the, each track has its own slot, and it has its own button under the slot, and that is a diode matrix, so that first car up there, the EJ&E car going to train 13, if you look down about in the middle, you'll see a Emmons St. L boxcar for train 13. So I'll push that button, and that's where that car will go. The next car is on 102, so I'll push that button, and that's where that'll go.
Mhm.
So this is what it looks like, a bird's eye view over the top of the hump. Okay, and this is what it looks like. This is a non-retarded hump, so it's really a rider type hump yard. So we'll take a look here at what's going to happen with the brakeman as he rides his car down. So what we're making up is train 101. I usually use the front 2 tracks of the hump yard for the makeup tracks. I like to use the first track for the cars that end up on the layout, and the second track for through cars. That way they're already blocked. For the west end switcher, he can put them in the train blocked. So as you see, there's the first car is going to go to the Northwestern interchange point in Tama, and the other 2 cars will go on to the very end. On the very left is a train card. It tells you what to do. On the back of that is a diagram of the railroad and what route you ought to take. So the hump yard guy has told the west end guy that he's done. He hands him the cards, and the switch engine starts to make up the train. And so that's what he's doing. I have picked up the idea of using a caboose card, and we have the conductor sign off after he checks the train to see that the cars that are on the train are supposed to be on the train. So there you get a little bit better idea of the what a train card would look like. Milwaukee 101, he picks up the locomotive at the engine terminal. to acquire to use the red numbers on the locomotive clip. Inspect the train and clearance forms if there's any. Follow the route stopping at Tama for pickup and set out at the yard. And it finally terminates the train at staging by giving all the train information to the east end switch crew, and he returns the locomotive to the engine terminal. So a engineer, the engine is normally not on the train. The engineer has to go get his engine to put it on the train. So here we are picking up the caboose. The trains can be any length. I've had trains run there 30 cars long. This train will not be that long. It's very unusual for a train to be that long, and nobody likes those because when they come in, the yard can't hold a 30-car train. So you got to double up, and it's just an awful job. And the 5 guys that are working there usually don't like me. So here we've picked up the locomotives on the front of on the clips there. You see the little clips. Every locomotive has a clip telling you what locomotive it is. The red number tells you what, how to put the number in your throttle. I do use Digitrax, and you can see they get a little worn from time. So the first engine is I think that's a Walther's engine, probably the Proto 1000. The next engine is an old Athearn engine, and of course, you know, if you are if you know the Milwaukee, you know they never had a full-size Trainmaster, but I have not reduced the size of this, and it too is original DCC, but it has the original motors in it. In fact, that one even has the old black motor in it. So some of them I've re-engineered, put new motors in, some of them not. Okay, so a train came in the meantime. That other train hasn't left yet. But the one that came in is train number 51, which is the Milwaukee Patrol. So the track that it's on is usually the receiving track. The track in the back is the makeup track. The one where you see the EJ&E is just an extra track. Usually that's where we put cars for train 13. The Milwaukee locomotive will disconnect, and it'll be taken to the engine facility, which is the track way at the back of the wall, or next to the wall. So this was the train that came in, and the engine is it was 1677, and you see the train card, the caboose card. There's the 5 cars that are on that train. The card to the very right is the LCL card. And what I do with that, I have orange tabs that I stick in the caboose holder. And you have to take, if it says drop them off, you got to drop them off at the proper town. And you also have some you got to pick up. And it's always interesting to find when the train comes in and nobody dropped any of them off. And if Dick Berry was on here, he would say that guy is still waiting for the bicycle out there. That kid will never get that bicycle. So now the EJ&E has got some trains, cars that are going back to the yard barge, and he's pushing them in. And that is the end of making up train 101, and pulled the cars out, pushed them back in. So that's a whole train ready to go. Any questions about that?
No, nicely explained. Yeah.
So looking at this slide here on the right, you'll see some box cars, and those have waybills in them, so that when the train comes in, they don't go to the barge. I call it the barge. I guess that's what everybody calls it. Anyway, those cars have to go over to the freight house. And you see the Union Pacific engine sitting there. The passenger trains, there are 4 passenger trains that run, 2 Milwaukee, 2 Northwesterns. And they're almost always pre-set up. I use the shelf mounted couplers, and they're really difficult to set those up. And so I usually do that myself. Down at the bottom, you'll see some cards that say like Milwaukee, number 71 West, number 72 East. Those are the passenger train train cards. And 71 West and East leave it one right after the other, and they meet in the town of Tama out in the layout. And that's almost exactly what happened with the Milwaukee. We lived at Gladstone, which was 5 miles east of Tama, and that was all double track. So, they didn't have to wait anywhere. My railroad, of course, is single track. So they have to make the meet at a place where they can make the pass, where they can pass. So with that, I will, I'm not sure I know what to do next. I got to get rid of that, Greg. End show. Oh, guess what? It's gone. Now, I'll get rid of this. Now I'm back on. Next thing I want to show you is Maynard Mitchell had sent this out to everybody, and it's his staging of cars. Tonight's only car staging. And but I thought we ought to put it in the record. So I made a PowerPoint of it. And I'm not going to go through everything. It's a little hard to read, but we can talk about it a little bit. And in his case, he calls it the fiddle yard. And he's modeling the Northwestern Railroad set in the Ashland, Wisconsin area. And
Are we supposed to be seeing this?
oh, you can't see it?
No.
No,
Oh,
you guys share screen, Ron, if you're showing another PowerPoint.
hold on. Thanks for helping me.
We're patient for about 30 seconds and then we're going to jump.
I know, I need help all the time. I really do. Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, perfect.
All right, so I'll let you have a few minutes to read it, because I probably, if I would read it, I would miss half of it. And the next one, he has some pictures with his. So. Anyway, he says, I still need to build my car storage cabinet, which in other words, not all the cars are going to be on the railroad. So here's, Maynard builds a beautiful, everything he does is well done and all set up and everything. And this is his staging yard. And as far as I know, all of the red handles take care of the turnouts. And Richie does have a little bit of pulpwood. So here he's talking about it. The fiddle yard is at both ends of the railroad, and the train leaves and enters 2 squares behind a hole. Will show that. And on, never to be seen again, just like in the real world. Apparently has a turntable at the end. Engines enter the turntable. And I think we'll have a picture of that. Turn around, go into storage. I think at the very end, you could just make out that black turntable
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and you can see all of his locomotives sitting over there. Apparently he has a little bit of the Sioux in here. I see the Sioux line caboose. Ah, there we go. So apparently he leaves one track open in order to get the engines out. And on the other end of the train, I'm not sure he talks about how he puts the caboose on though. The red switches apparently kill the track. And there is the hidden track that disappears behind the scenery. That's how he gets in and out of the fiddle yard, he calls it. His scenery, of course, is beautiful because he's puts a lot of foliage into it. And there's the other one from the other end, disappearing in there. And that is what he sent me. So it'll become part of this record. All right. So now I got to figure out how to do this again. All right, that's gone. That's gone.
Mhm.
Now, Joe Berger sent me one too. Unfortunately, this one has no pictures to it. But an earlier call from John Ansky this evening, he said he would do some commenting on this. So I'm going to bring it up and I'll let John be the one to talk about it. All right, let's see. Now I got to do this and this and this and this. All right, John, I think you're on.
Okay. Joe's got, for those of you who don't know him, he has a very large basement size layout. And he's modeling the Great Northern from basically from Spokane all the way west to Seattle Interbay. And then he's got here, these Tacoma staging tracks. He wanted me to tell you, because I talked to him today, he said the big thing that he has, and he would be welcome to share it with anybody, just send him an email. He's on the email list here. He has a checklist for staging. And he said that staging isn't just about moving the cars or trains. He also includes on his staging checklist, like cooling off the railroad, making sure that the parking area is clear of the dog. I mean, just all sorts of little things that creep up, and that he could just check them off and be sure he's done with it. What he does here at the West End, there is no turnaround here. Up in Spokane, there's a Y and a reversing loop, and those trains get turned around on the Y. But here on the West End, the freight trains are, the engine and caboose are swapped and the waybills are flipped. He makes sure that there are new header cards for each train. The passenger train, here the Hiawatha, let's see, the Hiawatha only requires putting the bipolar electric on the other end of the train. The other ones, he has to actually reverse 050 and take the observation car off the back, put it on the back, the new back. So there's a lot more to it than just moving the cars around. What's the next one there, Ron?
There you go.
Okay, the back 3 tracks of the 6-track yard are passenger, and the front 3 are freight. Woe be unto anybody who puts a passenger train where it doesn't go or a freight train where it doesn't go. He's got it set up so that certain trains take a alternate route, and that actually sets up the staging, sets up the routing so that they will go where they're supposed to go. And like I said, he basically takes most of those out. The passenger trains just get run around the loop and back in. The 400s, he calls them, those are the big through freights. They get restaged as far as blocks go. There are 3 different blocks. There's a Wenatchee block, there's a Gold Bar block, and a Seattle Interbay block. And he makes sure that those are reblocked. It's important when you're going through the town of Wenatchee and the town of Gold Bar that the block is on the correct end of the train. Otherwise, it takes for an awful lot of switching, and people get mad. He flips his ice. He checks his ice train schedule as he puts on here. Again, that's on his to-do list. He also makes sure up there that he balances the train out. He runs 4 different sessions, a midnight session, midnight to 6 a.m., 6 a.m. to noon, noon to 6, and 6 p.m. to midnight. The traffic is usually balanced out pretty well. He may occasionally change out a few cars by hand, but normally it's 22 cars in on a train and 22 cars out. I'm doing this blind, so I don't know what he's got on the next list. There it is. He's talking about the 400. Reblocking them for Seattle, Gold Bar, and Wenatchee. And he tries to make it so that, like I said, there's 22 and there's the correct balance of cars for each destination. He did have at one time, there would just be one 400 run in each direction, but the traffic and the operating of the layout, people got so good at it that we could add the second 400s on. And again, he wants to make sure that there's an equal workload rather than having 12 on the first and none on the second on the cars.
Let me see if there's another slide. There it is.
He's also got staging tracks for Vancouver, Milwaukee Lowell, and Milwaukee Monroe. Vancouver, there's a story, and the person that's not here tonight, he's not on this list, but he ran way past Vancouver. Vancouver's just outside Seattle, basically, and he ended up in Gold Bar, which is probably about 60 miles outside of where he's supposed to be, and he was calling for a helper. So he said, how come you don't have a helper lined up for this train? Well, because that train was supposed to go back behind that hidden staging backdrop. So they just get pulled out in between sessions and flipped around. He says he's got no fiddle type of work going on, and he doesn't during the session. There's some moving around of cars after the sessions, but I forget how many cars. Alan, maybe you can help me. And Ron, you've been there.
Last I knew was up over 900.
Yeah. So that's a lot of cars to try to keep track of, and it's pretty well balanced. And he's done that by designing the layout so that the staging would be easy. There's not a lot of cars that go into the Tacoma area as compared to Spokane. So Spokane, he put that reverse loop up there in a Y to make it easy to restage. I know when we've had the Op SIGs and we had the Optia drop weekend, he operated on a Friday night and then it was completely restaged on a Sunday morning. for pretty demanding operators. And the way he did it was with that checklist, and he didn't forget anything. So if you look on the email, the call list for this video or this Zoom meeting, you'll see Joe's email address there. He's got a real nice, it's on a spreadsheet, real nice checklist, and you could just take out, his towns and put in your towns for the staging to help you. I don't know how many other people have 900 cars in their layout, but it's definitely a help. I use a version of it, and I'm constantly revising it, so sometimes I forget things.
Just a couple of comments from me, and I haven't operated there, but a couple of times. It's a big layout and it's multiple levels, and he has platforms so that as you move up, you actually step up on the platform, which is really good because you don't have it isn't a case where you could fall off of it. I mean, it's like you literally go up to the next floor, and when you get up to the top, you're right up there next to the ceiling, right, John?
Yep.
There are. And then he has a very large helix, which you guys can describe better than me, but my gosh, it's got to be 4 feet from top to bottom or longer than that, right?
It's about 4 feet high, I think, and I think it's a 36-inch radius, but I'm not really sure. It's a big
That's
boy.
Yeah,
It is big. And then as you walk in, he has where the engine facilities and the big yard is. There are usually about 6 people working along that one side of the room. I worked with another guy in the yard. Let me tell you, that yard was packed with cars. It was difficult to make up. We didn't make up the train. We pulled the cars out and handed them to the guys to the right of us who made up the train. But it was an interesting job getting the cars that were required. And he has a very thorough. Everything is written up on what cars go to what train and things like that. So I'm sure if you want more about how Joe does it, Joe sent me a lot of things through the years. We once had a NMRA wise why Joe sent me a lot of information on how he did his car cards and things. So I have some of that, including what Joe could send to you.
That yard you're talking, Ron, is the Interbay yard, and Alan Black and one other guy normally work the classification yard section of it. Chuck Hart works the passenger terminal section of it. And then you have 2 more guys in the arrival and departure rather. And then 1 more guy is a hostler. So, and it takes 6 people easily to operate that yard.
It's busy there. Well, okay, so that takes care of that, and I'll get rid of this. I thought those things should be in the. It should be in the record. There are a number of people who just look at this on the YouTube, and now they have that, and they can take their time and look at it. So we talked about doing a little bit of. I guess we got some time, don't we? Looks like it.
Yeah.
So we talked about maybe introducing a few people. So the first one on my list is Alan Black. Now, Alan, you're on.
okay. Well, I'm Alan Black. I live down southwest of John and Joe up in Warsaw, in Akron, Indiana. And I have a nice, somewhat finished layout, but anyhow, I have not ever actually done any formal operations here, short of what myself and my grandson do. It's practically ready. It's ready for a trial run. Let's put it that way, or was last year when things locked down. So I work off of a sequence list. Basically, I've got, I don't know, I think around 40 some trains, but my staging goes, I don't have any pictures of it, but it just goes lower staging, which is dead end. Both my staging yards are dead ended. So the train arrives and they have to be turned around in between sections. So, I don't know. What else you want to know? Ask away.
Okay, Greg, you're next.
I'm Greg Biltman, and I have a layout in my basement that is about halfway done. And I model the Chicago Northwestern and Milwaukee Road up in the Upper Peninsula, and the ore trains that run from the mines through Antoine and Iron Mountain into Escanaba. And my time period is probably around 1960 and 1964, probably somewhere around in there. And so it's being set up for operations, and I'm hoping in a year or so I'll be able to actually start doing that. But right now the track is laid for about 75% of the layout. And this week during spring break, I've been clearing out the laundry room, which is where the return loop is going to be. So maybe by the end of the summer, I might actually be able to run trains over the entire course of the layout. But I have a lot of fun with it, and so.
I'll add that Greg is the superintendent of the Michiana Division NMRA.
That's
And
right.
John, you're next. And John, you showed us your layout a bit, but you can introduce yourself.
Okay, I have a fairly large layout. It's 35 feet by 60 feet. It's now 5 levels. I have proto-freelance the Siskiyou line between Dunsburg, California up to Portland, Oregon, and then from Portland over to Spokane. The the railroad is jointly owned by the Burlington Northern and the Southern Pacific in 1973. There's still an awful lot of Great Northern, Northern Pacific, SP&S on the layout, which is what I wanted. Passenger trains are run by Amtrak with the Burlington Southern locomotives and Southern Pacific locomotives. I've operated about 20 to 21 times, and I could take up to about 25 people. 18 is the happy spot, or 20 is the happy spot. There are 2 very large yards and 3 industrial areas, 2 of which can be operated sitting down, because we're all getting older. So it's run by NCE with a Chuck Hart is my dispatcher with a computer dispatchers panel, 3 panels. The main line switches are run by the dispatcher. Locals ask for local control, and they can run their switching operations. And the layout is about 3/4 of the way signaled now. I bought a 3D printer because I found out how much signals cost. So for the cost of the printer, I printed most of my own. Right now, I am rebuilding the town of Portland. I'll be up, Ron, with the guys to see you next Thursday, looking for some more big buildings. And I'm putting the equivalent of a Fuller car system in there.
Okay.
So that's about all I could think about.
Okay, Rod's next on my list.
Sorry for the phone ringing in the background. I'm Rod Thompson. I live about 5 miles from Ron in Stevensville. I am HO model scale, about 400 square feet in my basement. I'm modeling 4 dark railroads in southwest Wisconsin. One was the Chicago Northwestern Ridge Runner that went west from Madison the Milwaukee Road that west from Janesville and up to Mineral Point. The Mineral Point Northern, which went from Mineral Point up to Highland, and then the Platteville and Calamine, which went from Platteville to Calamine, just south of Mineral Point. I'm about 25 to 30% constructed. I'm building it all in modules. So I'm building it section by section and having a great time under construction. I'm under extreme pressure from Ron to get a railroad running, but I'm resisting every step of the way. So anyway, that
Okay,
pretty well.
Rich, you're next. Rich Hankey up there.
Okay, Rich Hankey, and I'm modeling the CNW about 1950, Manitowoc County. That'd be like from Lake Michigan west. Several towns. I'm trying to model the towns that I'm modeling. I'm trying to do it as carefully as I can, like Cleveland, and talking to the people that either live there or used to live there. Most of the people that I've interviewed used to live there, and now they're part of the great beyond. But I'm modeling. I think I can model the whole thing or run the whole thing in Steam. Yeah, because I've been over the years kind of saving a little bit and saving a little bit, and I could buy a brass engine that's right for the CNW. My layout runs from what would be Manitowoc. I call it Brickton, the town I grew up in around Chicago. And so we operated from time to time with our boomer operating group. And because of several either unfortunate situations or people moving away, our group is kind of splintered. But I just write out way bills, and like I'll have 2 way bills set up for 2 rivers, run out and back, and then run out and back again. So we have a good time here. And so I've got a Y that rather than a turntable, I have a Y, but the electrical, it's been such a pain in the ass wiring that thing. Excuse the expression, but it has been. Then I've got another Y and on the top level that's going to run into the downstairs living room, but I could say that now because my wife's not home. So, all right, well, there you are.
All right, David Besterman.
Yeah, I'm David Besterman, living in Valparaiso, Indiana. HO scale modeler of the C&O Railroad in Virginia. A lot of coal traffic. The railroad fills the room about 14 feet wide, 24 feet long, double deck, loop to loop. The loops are stacked over each other. And I enjoy running trains, seeing the coals go east and the empties coming west. No passenger traffic to speak of, just a local passenger train, gas electric, and manifest trains, both east and westbound. HO scale, I said that. It's 12 volt DC operated. I'm stuck in the 90s, I guess.
Okay, Alan, you're next. I'm not sure I know you, Alan.
Don't know either. I'm Alan Bow. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've only been doing this. Hey, Joel. I've only been doing this for about 3 years. I have the usual story. You know, you get a train when you're 3 years old, and it gets put away eventually, and then all of a sudden you bring it out and you say, "Hey, this might be kind of fun." So I'm modeling in HO right now. It's more of a freelance operation. I haven't got into staging yards yet, but I'm trying to work that in at some point. So yeah, I'm a real beginner, but I'm having a lot of fun. So I appreciate all the information you guys are supplying. It's overwhelming.
Good. Mark Carlson. Hey, Mark, are you there?
He's muted.
He's got himself muted, I guess. We'll come back to you.
Does
There
that
you
work
go.
now? Does that work now?
It works now. We can hear you.
Okay. I've really enjoyed watching all these, but I couldn't begin to set any of this up to make it happen. So I'm glad some of you people are capable of that. I'm Mark Carlson. Ron's never seen my new house. I'm living in western Wisconsin between Eau Claire and Superior. I've begun a new layout. It's much smaller than my previous layouts. I model in HO, Chicago Northwestern, my hometown of Baraboo. And I recently, meaning yesterday and today, switched out my rolling stock because I've got 4 sets of equipment for different time periods. And I have just put away the 1960s and got out the 1970s. So that's old wine rebuild Jeeps, GP30s, 35s, and an SD45 and all the equipment to go along with it. And I just today operated my first session by myself in which I don't have the way bills like you guys have. I generate switch lists and then operate the trains accordingly out of these 2 small staging yards that I have.
Okay. Neil, I guess you're next on my list.
You're muted, Neil.
Okay, thanks for reminding me. My son and I started a layout N scale in 1981, and I sold it a couple years ago because he and his boys are building their own layout like it should be. And thinking of downsizing going forward, I'm in the process of building a couple HO Fremo modules that I intend to have done in time for the NCR convention in Toledo in October. And if the Huckleberry Railfan weekend is on in August, and I don't know if they've decided that yet, there's normally a Fremo set up there, and I'd really hustle to try and get to that also. I've got several neighbors that have layouts, everything from N to O, and Henry Arndt is the closest layout. Some of the guys on here have seen his layout. We have lived near each other for 35 years before I knew he was a model railroader and vice versa. So, and he's got a fabulous layout, and we should get him to show that to us on here some Thursday night. So, oh, I forgot to mention I'm in Elkhart, Indiana. So that's the story from this end.
Yeah. Next is Richard Green.
I don't know if you can hear me or not. I've got the sounds in the background. It's actually the Union Pacific. I live in Morrison, Illinois, and my house is right next to the old Northwestern. I'm all primarily Chicago Northwestern, HO scale. I have a fairly new 30 by 40 foot building that I put up just for put the trains in. Currently, it needs to be insulated and have the HVAC put in it. So we're not building layout yet. We're still building the building. My interest is Chicago Northwestern, the East-West Maine, the Geneva Division, Clinton, Iowa, East to Rochelle, actually looking at going all the way to West Chicago. So the era, I'm looking at doing multiple eras where you change out the locomotives and the equipment, and I've been collecting equipment. So I can do the different eras, the 80s, 60s, 70s, and that type of thing. I belong to a club that was in Clinton that doesn't exist anymore. It's underneath the highway. The state took the hobby shop and flattened it. And did a lot of, used to have Tuesday night trains, which are round robin clubs that I participated in. And I learned a lot by going to the different layouts, helping build layouts, operate the layouts each people have. Many of the people don't have the level of operating that I'm seeing on these presentations. It's much more simpler because they're not, I'm gonna say they're not as passionate about it, but they're not as knowledgeable. So it's interesting to see the mix of people.
Dan, you're up. Dan? Wait a minute, he's got to get off his mute off too.
Had to get unmuted. I'm Dan Brewer. I live in Granger, Indiana, and for the past 3 or 4 years, I've been imagining a model railroad that depicts the Norfolk Southern from 2009 to 2012 loosely, going from Elkhart to Burns Harbor. And I have a pretty wide open basement. The railroad covers about 900 square feet of that. And I have the top deck built. It's all tracked and runs with a 4-track reverse loop staging yard. And I got derailed by trying to get into signaling and LCC. And right now, all my LCC boards are programmed and ready to be mounted under the layout. But for the last 6 months, my wife and I have discussed moving. And not for any darn good reason either, other than maybe moving into a ranch style house up a little west of Niles. And so I'm not sure if that's going to materialize. If it does, I'm going to suffer a big setback. And what I hope to get out of it, though, is rather than a railroad that serpentines around this basement, that one that has 40-foot runs, so that I can put in, like right now, I've got LaPorte east and west on 2 different peninsulas, LaPorte, Indiana, and I hope to have that all on one side of a 40-foot run, so that it would, so I can spread things out. And so we'll see where that goes. But my control system's NCE, and I have wireless, and I bought one of those. I mean, sure, John knows about this new wireless add-on for the control bus for NCE that allows you to hook phones up to it. So anyway, that's it.
Bob, you're up.
Okay, I unmuted myself. Am I live now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Bob Grellett, Mason City, Iowa, just a few blocks from Clark Probst. I modeled the Rock Island 1967 on a branch line, simple little single track branch line that ran from Vinton up to Iowa Falls and then branched off from there. In a room, it's about 28 by 32 roughly. Most of it is double decked, about 3/4 of it. That's a double deck. Everything, I have a Digitrax control system. All the power has got sound that I've installed. And we've been operating with a group of 6 or 7 guys now for probably about 15 years. Before that, I operated just with 1 or 2 people at a time. The layout that I've got now has been pretty much completed. We've lived in the house 28 years now, and it's mostly built from scratch. I did move some sections in from a basement layout that when we moved here, I saved whatever I could. We use a car card system. Sessions run about 2.5, 3 hours. We just started operations again a week ago, trying to get back into the swing of things. And hopefully we can keep that going for a while. I think that's about it.
Hey, Ron, you're next. Ron Jelson.
All right, my name's Ron Jolson. I live about 10 miles south of Ron Christensen in Berry Springs, Michigan. And I model an HO is Grand Trunk Railroad in New England, covering from Portland, Maine to Island Pond, Vermont. I chose that area, but that's where my wife's from, and it keeps her involved with the purchase of equipment and materials to keep me going. It's about a 16 by 18 foot layout, and it's about 50% complete. Got a lot to go on it yet. But most of my time is involved now in trying to get trains in shape for the Garden Railroad down in Fernwood Botanical Gardens in Niles, Michigan. It consists of about 400 feet of track, and we run 5 loops, and we consist of about 12 engines and about 60 cars. And that keeps us pretty busy, keeping those engines running, because they'll run those things 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, pretty much nonstop. So there's a lot of maintenance taking place on those engines.
Okay, but Bjorn?
Still muted somehow, Bjorn. No, still can't hear you.
Oh, now.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Obviously, I'm not the guy you want to ask DCC or LCC questions of. I'm Bjarne Henderson. I'm from Valparaiso, Indiana, and I've started the first level of 3 levels. I'm not one of those guys that puts it all in paper. I kind of plan with my head as I go along. And the vision is something like Balta, Delphi, Washington. I want to put the Penn Reading Seashore Lines, which is a piece of what was it, 30th Street. I can't build a station as big as 30th Street, so I think Baltimore is about the right size. And I like the idea of changing out catenary to diesel or vice versa. So there will be a tunnel so that I can use I don't have to string catenary everywhere, but enough of it to make it miserable for the operators to have to bring a train in and, change out the power. I really enjoy the sessions and how you guys have made me feel welcome. It's a great group, and I'm looking forward, when time permits, to do more. Right now, I'm still engaged full-time in the railroad industry, and then about two weekends a month, I volunteer down at North Judson as a locomotive engineer or conductor, or somebody slings a paint can, because I'm a lot more accurate with a paint brush at 1:1 as opposed to 1:87. So there's a little more room for an error, when you're putting it on the side of a gondola. So that's me, and looking forward to getting to know all of you. And David, at some point we got to get together. I've got some C&O passenger equipment that needs to run on a coal line. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Chuck?
I'm Chuck Hart, and I've been on the list for quite a while. I do appreciate it, like you all do. After hearing a lot of the comments about your railroads, I feel I should be running a Granger road, but I don't. I model UP, SP, Western Pacific, and Denver Rio Grande in an area in Utah, mostly Wendover to Salt Lake, and run down to Provo. Like most of you guys on this list, I've got some of you are running on my op sessions. John Hansky has been dispatcher. Ron Christensen is usually a crew caller at my location. Alan Black runs our Wendover yard. So it's, even though we haven't had a op session for a while, at least I get to see your faces. So I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, John. Ron was over to my house today, and I was showing him what I'm doing. We never finish our railroad. And if you ever get to that point, you might get bored and want to do something different with it. Like John, I think he's rebuilding Portland? Yeah. Anyway, how do I do this? This area on my railroad, I don't know if I can get my hand up here. Well, where the little red building is on the corner of my railroad, that's gone right now. There's about 2.5 feet by 8 feet that is completely wiped clean except for the main line. So we are rebuilding one of the major cities on my railroad at this point. We stripped it last week. And so that's going to get a whole new set of tracks for industry and town and all that. So I want to make sure my railroad's never done. I want to stay in the hobby. So I run Digitrax and also have a router in the building so that guys can use their smartphones through JMRI. I do have a basement, but I don't use it for the railroad. I'm very fortunate that I have a building on my property that you could actually live in. It's habitable, but it's a great place to have the railroad. The railroad itself is 16 by 23 N scale. So I got plenty of room for railroad. So anyway, that's, oh, I should mention that a couple weeks ago, I did one of the staging presentations, and that's available on, I think Greg keeps a running list. We were up to about 30, I think we're up to about 30 presentations now on the list. So you can see a lot of my railroad by reviewing that staging presentation. And I've done a couple others too. So, and we'll probably have more in the future. Who knows?
John?
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, John Cole. Cole.
I'm John Coy. I'm down in Avon, Indiana, which is just we're just outside of Indianapolis to the west. We've got my division, the Central Indiana Division, in the Midwest region, have a big train show coming up on May the 15th and the 16th in Franklin, Indiana, at the Johnson County Fairgrounds. It's our first 2-day show ever. And even though it's so late in the year, we're expecting a really good turnout because all of us have been prisoner for so long now. Anyway, my railroad is a O-scale railroad that fills a 1,300 square foot basement, and we've had it primarily together for the last 5 years. We run operating sessions every other Sunday night, and right now we're just keeping it to the core crew, which is about 7 or 8 people. We can host as many as 15, but right now we're keeping it down just to give everybody plenty of space. And hopefully things are getting a little bit better every day and we'll all move on from here. But we're all looking forward to that train show. So if anybody's down in these parts, be sure and mark off that weekend of May 15th and 16th. It's, again, Johnson County Fairgrounds in Franklin, Indiana.
Okay. Joel, I think you're last. There may be some that have left, but you're still here.
All right, still here. I'm Joel Pyard. I live up in Pawpaw, Michigan. Alan Bow and I are from Division 9. I model in HO Pensie's Grand Rapids Division, primarily north of Grand Rapids. So it's mostly, the vision is a rural railroad. I'm still in the design phase. What operating section of railroad I have right now is really just a test bed for all the various things I'm working on. I'm a late convert to DCC. I'm working on with NCE. Someone earlier mentioned modular benchwork in their design. I'm going that route as well because Lord knows things change and the railroad may have to be relocated someday. So the railroad design is going to be mostly rural. It's going to rely heavily on interchange traffic with the Pier Marquette, Grand Trunk, and Ann Arbor in various places. The yard focus will be focused on the North Yard and Cadillac. I'll be doing the Traverse City branch and probably the Lake City branch as well. I'm picturing right now that the northern terminus of the railroad, not terminus, but the modeled area will probably be Kalkaska. Everything north of that will be staging, and Grand Rapids will be off layout and staging as well. So still in the design stage. I really appreciate being involved in this group. You folks are an impressive group of modelers, and I'm glad I've had the chance to meet you.
I think we went, did I miss anybody?
Miss Clark.
Clark, is he on here?
Yeah, he's on here.
I don't see him.
There he is. He's on mute. There he is.
We all know Clark anyway, but Clark, tell us something.
Well, I've known Ron for a long time. I live in Mesa City, Iowa. Been in modeling all my life. Been into prototype modeling when I started building resin freight cars. Have a layout that's done a section of it is made so that I can keep building and replacing buildings. Pick one up, put another one down. I think that's about it. Hopefully see you all in St. Louis.
Yes, yes. Okay, if I haven't missed anybody, I guess it's, we're.
Oh, hey,
past our
Ron.
hour. Huh, go ahead.
I've got a piece done up for staging if you're still going to continue this.
I think
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah, let's do it next
Okay.
week.
Fair enough.
Okay, anybody else? Well, Greg, I guess we had a long meeting today.
Yeah, we didn't do too bad, but yeah, very good. Well, thanks, Ron, for the presentation, and it was good hearing from everybody, getting to know y'all, and so we'll be back on here next week with.
Hey, Greg, before you hang it up, let me make a quick announcement here.
Sure.
Greg?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just in case anybody's interested, the Northeast region is having a weekend convention on Zoom or whatever it is. Go to nerx.org to get the information. Goes from 2 p.m. till who knows when in the evening with a break for dinner on each day. So that's the 10th and 11th, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend, nerx.org.
Yeah, put it on the, put it on our daily letter.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.